When your book contains lots and lots of exercises and activities that you know are impactful, picking which ones to include and which ones to leave out of your group program can be really difficult. Hi, authors. Welcome to the Book Desserts podcast series. I'm your host, Carrie Dobson. I'm so excited to have you here as we explore the sweet side of author-led groups. This podcast is for you if you're already an author or you have a book in the making. And when you think about the impact that you want to have, yes, you have your book and you want to go beyond your book and you want some of that work that you're going to do out in the world to include groups. I hope you're ready for this tasty exploration of author-led groups. Let's jump into this next episode. Welcome to this episode in the Book Desserts podcast series. When your book contains lots and lots of exercises and activities that you know are impactful, picking which ones to include and which ones to leave out of your group program can be really difficult. In this program idea episode, what we're going to talk about is a book that is in that exact situation. Tons of exercises and rituals that are really impactful. And if I was working with this author, I want to talk a little bit about how we might go about figuring out what to include and what not to include. So the book today is How to Be Loving as Your Heart is Breaking Open and Our World is Waking Up. The book is written by Danielle LaPorte. It was published by Sounds True in 2022. The reason I picked this book is you can see as I was reading it, you always know how into a book I am by the number of stickies that are in it. This book is jam-packed with information, but more so for this conversation, tons of different exercises from meditations to journaling ideas to things that you can do within your life. What I find with these types of books is the author has so many tools and so many ideas that are really helpful to their audience, and you want to include as much as you can. But you have to counter that with, if you include too many exercises, too much activities in not enough time, you actually end up leaving your participants overwhelmed, they're frustrated, they're unsure, and that's actually the opposite of what you're trying to do by having a group program for them. Instead, you want to help them to take the ideas that are in the book and bring it into their life. So they're actually using all the tools, they're using the rituals. So when you're thinking about doing this, you want to make it as easy and effortless as possible that they will make those changes, that they will do the activities, and that they will get the results that you're talking about and that you know they can experience. And then you want them to tell all their family, friends, and colleagues about your program and the impact that it had. And so if you're not careful and you include way too many exercises and activities in your group program, you're not going to get that result, and neither are they. So this book, I showed you all my tags, but I read this book really slowly, like really slowly. And that's because it's jam-packed with wisdom and ideas and perspectives. And it includes so many different meditations and rituals and activities that really help the reader to lead a more loving life. As Danielle kind of writes in her introduction, being loving doesn't mean feeling more. It means feeling everything with more love. And so in the book, she includes 4 different parts, over 30 chapters, where she's breaking down what this kind of idea of feeling more love and being more love in the world looks like. While I was reading this book, I knew I had to do a program idea episode on this book because it reminds me of so many of the books that I see out there and that I read. And these are books that are full of amazing exercises, but it would just be too much for a typical group program. If Danielle were looking to put a group program together and had to kind of put all this in and wanted to put all this in and do it in a short amount of time, she'd end up having to shove everything into it. And what ends up actually happening is the message would be lost and the impact would never be realized. And that's not what you want to do. As an author, you've been looking at how do you create a group program because you want to go deeper with your audience. You want to work with readers who are so inspired or so impacted by the ideas in your book and help them to bring it to life, help them to think about it longer, really integrate it into their life. So you don't want to turn them off. You don't want to leave them frustrated. You don't want to leave them kind of feeling overwhelmed. as an author, if you have a book that's really dense like this with exercises and experiences, you really have two choices when it comes to your group program. The first one is to create a longer program, to go beyond kind of that typical 3-month mark of a group program and say, we're going to take a lot longer to do this because I want to give my participants the time they need to not only experiment with what works for them out of these experiences and exercises that you have, but also to give them that opportunity to then integrate it into their life, into their business, into their career, wherever it is your focus is on. So if I was working with Danielle and we said, okay, we're going to do a longer term program, a program promise for something like this might be something to the effect of the program promise is this program is going to help you embrace the rituals and perspectives that allow you, the participant, to have a more loving approach to your life. So that's choice number one, is to create the longer program. If you don't want to do the longer program, either because it's not of interest to you, it doesn't match your business model, you don't think your community and audience is interested in that, then you need to limit the focus of your program. You're going to have to say, okay, I can't do it all, and I'm not doing it all. What's a portion of that book that I could do a group program on? So again, if I was working with Danielle and she said, no, I don't want to do a longer program, I want to kind of do a more typical shorter length program, we could say, okay, well, maybe we can do something for each of the 4 parts. Or hers are so jam-packed, it could even be like, we're going to focus on 1 or 2 chapters. And that's what our group program is going to be. So for example, there's a couple chapters in this book that is all about acceptance. And so a program promise, if we decided we're going to really have a shorter program, we're going to target on acceptance, a program promise might be something around transforming the role of acceptance in your life. That's the acceptance of yourself, life, and others. So that's kind of the decision you need to make is, do I want most of this, if not all of this, in there? If I do, how long of a program is that? And does that match kind of what I'm trying to do in my business? And does that speak to the audience that I'm supporting and the clients that I have? If it doesn't, then you have to say, okay, I'm not going to do the whole book. I have to really focus and target. And it depends on how dense your book is in terms of exercises and experiences as to how much you need to focus. So let's, for this example, just say that I was working with Danielle and we said, we're going to do a longer program. We're going to do kind of that year-long program because it's such a jam-packed book. And in order to really, transform kind of your perspective and how you show up in life, that takes a while. So if I was to say, okay, let's do a year-long program, I would look at this and say, okay, there's 4 parts in the book. So let's look at each quarter kind of focusing on one of those parts so that we can start each quarter off with, going into some of the knowledge and some of the perspectives, and then start experimenting and practice with some of the experiences or the rituals, the meditations, that type of stuff. And then I would give the remainder of that quarter to the opportunities to really experiment and explore, try it on, get feedback, get support as you're doing it. And then time for that integration and that celebration that comes with it as well. So I might still, because this book is so dense with experiences, it still might not be all of them. Even with that 1-year approach to it, it still might not include all the activities. And that's okay. What you want to do is you want to look at your book and the activities and experiences that are already in the book and say, which of these really connect with the program promise? Because we always start with our program promise. So what is it that I'm, what is it that I'm committing to that all the participants in this group will be able to accomplish and experience within the program? So what I want you to do, if you're kind of saying, yeah, this sounds like my book, I've got a book with a variety of different exercises and experiences, what do I do next? So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to make a list of all the activities and experiences that you've included in your book. Start there. So make that list. Then I want you to think about your program promise and say, is that a program promise that I'm going to deliver in less than 2 months or less? If that's the case, I want you to go through that list of activities and pick 4, only 4. What would be the 4 activities or experiences you would include in that group program because it's 2 months or less? If you're looking at kind of that program promise and it's more to that 3 to 6 months target that you're going to go for the duration of your program, then pick your top 8 activities. And if you're going to go closer to kind of that year-long, like 8 to 12 months, then choose your top 12 to 14 experiences. I want to just acknowledge that this is likely going to be hard for you to pare down. And that's because everything you've included in your book, you've already predetermined is important, it's impactful, it's going to make a difference. So I want to just reiterate, it's your program promise that you want to go back to help you go through that list of activities and make the choice about which ones you would include and which ones you wouldn't. Of course, if you ever want to talk about it or you want to say, hey, I need someone to help me figure this out. Why is that number so low? Or like, what activities would you get rid of? I'm happy to have that conversation with you. We took the How to Be Loving by Danielle LaPorte, which is a really great book that includes tons of different experiences and rituals and exercises. And using this book, we talk through some of the things we need to keep in mind when it comes to putting together a group program that incorporates the most impactful experiences and the most impactful exercises we have as it relates to the program promise. Thanks for listening. Well, authors, that concludes this episode of the Book Desserts podcast series. If you're ready to start exploring how to go beyond your book with group programs, I encourage you to visit our website at jjdak.com. That's jjdak.com. On there, you can download our Design Your Groups with Ease workbook, which has some great checklists and questions you can ask yourself when you're thinking about designing your own group. If you're more interested in having a conversation with me, your host, Carrie Dobson, you can go ahead and book a complimentary group program clarity session right there on the website. I'd love to have a conversation with you about your book and about your group that you'd like to put out into the world. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with your own book desserts.